Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Women Who Rock with Success, which is an award-winning show for professional women. We profile a collective of amazing women who are thriving to build their brand. Women are handpicked in various fields who can provide credible information to build your business and lifestyle. We are live each Thursday at 9 a.m. Central Time, followed by our latest brand, Women Who Rock Investigates. To learn more about us, go to our website at www.womenwhorockwithsuccess.com. Now, let's join our podcast host in the studio, Mrs. Diane Winbush.
Women Who Rock with Success complies with the rules and terms according to the Federal Communications Commission podcast guidelines. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own, and their appearance on our digital media platforms does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. All guests who embrace our media stations are experts who are licensed in their fields of occupation. All rights reserved.
And good morning, and welcome to Women Who Rock with Success Media. This is your host, Ms. Diane Winbush, and of course, we thank everyone for tuning in with us today. We don't want our guests to forget about that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We also have a wonderful panel that's coming up at our 11 o'clock hour, and that's going to be video. And don't forget that this is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month as well. And so we had an awesome presentation on last week, and so we just want you to keep those women and men in mind. So today we have an interesting guest that's in the studio with us on today, and she's going to be talking about her new release on her book, and we are so excited to be able to have Danielle Kaplan in the studio with us today. So good morning and welcome to the media platform.
Hi, Diane. Lovely to be here.
Absolutely. I love your accent. I love it. So let's get a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us some other features that you have, and then we're going to get into your book a little bit after the introduction. So we want the audience to learn a little bit about you and the reason why I guess you wanted to become an author or any other type of specified field that you work in. So let's talk about that. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you for the introduction. So I grew up, and that's why the accent, in South Africa. I went to my schooling and university in South Africa, and I studied and became a speech pathologist and audiologist. And during my university, I met my husband, and I went on to study or to do a master's thesis, which is kind of relevant to the book, on brain injury, the communication of the brain injured. And most of my patients in the study were actually following motorbike accidents, ironically. My husband and I immigrated to Toronto, Canada, and love living here. And I worked in 2 acute care hospitals in the areas of spinal injury, neurosurgery, neuro-ICU, and trauma. So I have a background for many years working in acute care hospitals in these sort of very traumatic areas. I then went on to study health and wellness, and I did my Pilates training. I did my personal training for fitness. I then did bar courses, and then I did corrective exercise. So all of these kind of blend well for what happened in our lives and how I was able to navigate through this.
Okay, that is wonderful. So before we actually get into the book itself, we want to talk about the topic, and we want to talk about the title. So it says, now first, when I first looked at this, Danielle, I'm like, oh, here comes a thriller, because it seems like it says Thrill-Seker. It says Thrill-Seker, and I'm like, oh, okay, here's a thriller. We're already in the month of October, and Halloween at the end of the month.
Right.
So that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. So we want to talk about I Married a Thrill-Seker. So talk to us about the topic of that and why you chose that topic.
So, yeah, good question. So, I have a wonderful publisher in Rebecca Eckler from Reebok, and together we came up with a title, and I have to give her credit for it, because the truth is that's who I married. I married someone I always thought he was an extreme personality. He's very extreme in whatever he does. In his work, he works really hard, puts everything into 120% into everything he does. He was an ultramarathon runner. He was a long-distance cyclist. And then he took to adventure motorbiking, which clearly was not something that I supported, especially based on my background. But everybody has to be who they are, and you can't change people, and you can't take the thrill out of the seeker. And then I realized, I always thought he was extreme, but then I actually realized that maybe it's beyond extreme. He has this need to pursue intense experiences without actually looking at the risks or consequences. And I'm sure people face that in their lives at some point, where you come across someone who adrenaline drives what they do. He was always very focused in his work life, but in his play world, he did take it the extra mile.
Okay. So this story line is basically what you married. You married a husband. It's based around what he does, and he's a thrill seeker, and so this is based upon, I guess, what your marital life is about, and then I guess the powers and connects that he does, I guess, and it's also a thrill seeker to you too, because you're writing about it, so that's awesome as well. So I guess the next question would be, as I share with a lot of authors that I have on the show, and one is that two of my favorite authors and writers, one was the mother, and that was the Higgins and the Higgins-Clark. Mary Higgins Clark, and so it's the daughter, Carol Higgins, and so they were. I think the mother is deceased, but I know that the daughter is still writing and what have you. So one of the things that I loved about her and the daughter as well is that they write mystery books, and so with their books, what they do is they bring you in on the first paragraph. They bring you in, because that's the key to an author, correct, is that we want to make sure that we put that story plot in there, and so we want to hook the reader so the reader does not put the book down. So this would be the next question in regards to you. So when a reader picks up your book in regards to, I married a thrill seeker, because people, that's what they're going to run to this book simply because of the fact that people are looking of ways of how to relate to their spouse, to their significant other, and what have you. So what are some of the takeaways from this book that you want a reader to be able to grasp when they first open up the first page? What are some of the elements that you want them to be able to connect with you as to your story in regards to your husband?
So that's such a good question, and kind of makes you think, and I love that concept. So for me too, I love it when I read a book and it catches me right from the beginning. So I have to say, in the prologue, it grips you right from the beginning. It tells you almost what journey you're about to embark on, but it really doesn't give you how crazy the journey is. I also love to identify with characters, and the characters in this book are real people. And even when I reread the book, there are parts of it that actually got me, and I have tears, even though I actually know the outcome. So it is a compelling read. And so the take-home from this book, I think it's varied. I think that it covers a wide range of people. It covers people who like reading about medical scenarios. It takes you on an adventure. It is a little bit gripping, sitting on the edge of your seat. And it is on family relationships and spousal relationships, and how you live with someone who takes you on a roller coaster journey. But I would say the biggest take-homes from this book in the medical field, and I was so fortunate to have the most incredible medical support and healthcare here in Canada, is how relevant and how necessary it is to have a patient advocate. Because if you don't have someone advocate for you, a lot of things might go by the way and don't get dealt with. That's one of the biggest take-homes. There are also a number of sort of medical take-homes of what happens to someone in the ICU, and now you're looking at it from both a medical point of view because I was a clinician, and you're looking at it from a spouse point of view because I was the wife. So I was able to give both perspectives to navigate through this. It deals with the life and death issues and how to make a decision or how to navigate a decision when you have to look at somebody's critical situation and decide, are you going to allow medical intervention, or are you as a substitute decision maker going to say, no, got to stick with the pact we made? So some very deep issues you cover, and then certainly lots of other issues in terms of how this impacted my family, and so how trauma and critical situations impact families, not only myself, but my children, my extended family, and how I think one of the best take-homes, and I was so lucky, is when you have family, and they are truly family, when they step up and measure up and show up for you, and what a difference that makes.
Okay, great. Okay, seems like you have a lot that you're trying
there is a lot.
You're trying to. I mean, well, not you're trying to, but there's a lot that is downloaded in this book that you want your readers to be able to envision as to what you want them to pursue from the message that you're trying to send. So great, that's a great response. So let's go to the next question. So why do people thrill seek? Talk to us about that. Why do people thrill seek? Why does the high thrill and minimum stress may drive sensation seekers to repeated seek out new, exciting experiences? Because, a lot of times, especially since we've gone through the pandemic, I think all of us have been affected by that around the globe. And so now you see people, Danielle, they are leaving their corporate America jobs. They have turned over a new leaf since this coronavirus has somehow changed their perspective as to what they want to do further in life. So why do people thrill seek to incorporate all that what I've just said? Why do people thrill seek? People are trying to, like I said, when the coronavirus came, it changed a lot of things. I'm going to use an example. There was a journalist, anchor woman, that she did the afternoon news, and she's worked on it for probably about 15, 16 years or longer. And so once the coronavirus hit or the pandemic hit, somehow it rethinked and revamped everything that she had put forth in journalism and in news and reporting and all of this storytelling. Now she's doing something totally different. So why, in your perspective, do people thrill seek?
So I totally hear what you're saying, and just in relation to this health crisis that we globally have all gone through, I think it takes us off that treadmill of where we're going and makes us stop and reflect and say, life is short, we need to do what we need to do, and here is the moment. And I think for all of us, it gave us the opportunity to stop and reflect. Some of us make some decisions and others go, whoa, this is an opportunity to do everything I've ever wanted to do on my bucket list. So I'm no expert in thrill seeking. I would say I'm much more of an expert in my husband, although he wouldn't want to hear that or agree. But I think people thrill seek because maybe it's brain chemistry. And I read up on a psychologist, Dr. Marvin Zuckerman, and he talks about it as pursuing and thriving on sort of novel or new and intense experiences, so that there is that adrenaline whatever the chemistry, brain chemistry is, and people thrive on that, and they don't realize that in this behavior you're actually taking risks, and I don't think you consider the consequences. And in Stephen's case, it was sort of the thrill and adventure athletic experiences. Certainly in his work world, he never took this approach, but in the way he plays in his life, he needs speed, thrill, adventure, challenges. And even so now, after many years after the accident and the limitations on him, he still, in his modified way, is a thrill seeker. So I think it's brain chemistry. I don't think you can take it out of someone. Maybe one learns lessons along the way, but it really is this deep need to experience things that have risk attached.
Okay. Wonderful. So here's a statement, and I want you to respond to the statement. So it says, the many miraculous elements to the story from the spot device landing close enough to alert the authorities to the life. And this is one of perhaps one of your pieces from your book. To the life-saving techniques of modern medicine. So we understand that your book talks basically about your husband, and it also talks a little bit about some of your background that you did before you became actually an author. So talk to us a bit about that piece that was written in the book.
So, you just hit on exactly, almost like a turning point when we realized what happened on the road, and I'll explain it. It made me realize this is an incredible story, and Steve became known when he was in hospital as that crazy Yukon guy with incredible, unexplainable, unbelievable events. And so I'll explain what the spot is. The spot is a emergency box and button, as well as a GPS transmitter. So normally one would keep it on your body, but for some reason Steve attached it to the handlebars of his motorbike with a metal bracket and screws. So the story goes, and he has his accident, and he flies up in the air, and the motorbike, because it's an acceleration, deceleration kind of thing, keeps going and lands about, I don't know, what do you do? Do you talk in feet? Maybe 40, 60 feet away from him in thick bush. But the spot, and he lands on his back on this gravel road, and he's now got a spinal injury and he cannot move at all. The spot box breaks off the handlebar, flies up in the air, and almost as if Steve is a target, lands within his arm's reach. Now, when you think about how incredulous that is, it could have stayed on the bike, it could have tipped over, it could have gone 360 degrees in any direction, any distance, and yet this thing that he could then press the emergency button, which alerted, he had the responder company was in Texas, got his emergency call. And I mean, what are the odds of that happening? I talk about that's like the lottery of life. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So that was just one of many incredulous things that we still can't explain.
Okay. Absolutely. That is so wonderful. Okay, so you have three separate fundamentals, and we're going to talk about one of them for the sake of time. And I think one of them you have already kind of pointed out in the interview. So we want to talk about the raw and honest story. So Danielle's straightforward storytelling results in an open, unflinching look at the realities of a trauma of this magnitude. Because, look, this is something wonderful and powerful that you have done with this book. You have taken, I guess, the fragments, or you have taken this energetic perspective of your husband, and then you have also included as well in this book, some things about you as well. And I think this is so impeccable as to how you have combined all of this together. So we want to talk about the raw, honest story of that. And so tell us a little bit about the unflinching look at the realities of a trauma of this magnitude. And that's in regards to your storyline of your book itself.
So I in some ways was fortunate from the medical point of view that I had such a solid background. And so I could talk about the medical trauma in such clear terms. And my brother is a critical care physician who's globally known in his field. And so we could really be honest and truthful and real about all the medical aspects. But then there was a whole other side. There was the psychosocial, mental health of both my husband following the trauma and the impact on myself. And so when you talk about the raw honesty, there were times in the book that I'm really tough on him, and he doesn't look in such good light. And we question a whole lot of stuff. And I guess when I wrote it, there were times when I was really angry with him. And so I was totally honest. And when it came to knowing that, okay, we're going to publish this book, I checked in with him. He read it. And the best compliment he ever paid me was he actually sent an earlier draft to some of his colleagues. And he's risen very high in the field of his career. He went from not being able to move at all or cognitively impaired to rising so high in his field successfully. And he was still able to own up and be responsible and send the book in its early draft to colleagues, which would show him in not the best light. So I'm very, very open, very honest, and very raw about, at times, what I think about him and his behavior.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. That's fine and acceptable. So we want to talk about what are some of your long-term goals in as an author. Talk to us a little bit about that. What are some of the long-term goals that you would like to achieve as an author? I know this is not the only book that you will be releasing. Perhaps maybe you have a Thrill-Seker debut coming number 2 or a second volume of this or what have you. So talk to us a little bit about that. What are some of the long-term goals that you would like to see?
This is my first book, so I'm still sitting in the surreal, exciting moment of this feeling. I don't know if I've yet worked out my long-term goals. I'm going to really enjoy this journey and this period. But I think what I really realized during this is I actually enjoy writing. And even though in my other profession I had written reports and I had, with my brother, we had a paper published in a medical journal. So I had done some medical writing. But I really enjoyed the process. And then on top of it, if you get the best editor ever who becomes, your sort of, who helps you gain perspective and look at it as if you're writing this from someone who has no idea about what you're telling. So they novel to the story. And then you have the most incredible editor in Rebecca Eckler, who is your best cheerleader. It's just so wonderful to be embraced in this way, and it makes you think, wow, I'm so fortunate, I'm so lucky, and I don't know, maybe in the future there'll be something else, but I'm certainly enjoying this moment in this journey now.
Okay, wonderful. So we'd like to thank you for stopping to be with us in the studio today on Women Who Rock with Success Media. Of course, we do not want you to leave the studio unless you can be able to share, without sharing with the audience, how they can be able to connect with you, connect with your book, any social media handles that you would like for them to be able to follow you on. You can be able to do that at this time. So
the book has been released in Canada on Amazon.ca for pre-order. It's on Amazon.com, but it hasn't been released just yet. So we're waiting for that to happen, and it should be pretty soon. So the book itself will be available in paperback and in bookstores and online. So that's a way of accessing the book. I have, it's so funny, I don't have a website, but I do have my Facebook account on social media, and I do have under my name, and I do have Instagram accounts. But probably one of the best ways to also follow me through is through my publisher, which is Rebooks, which is Rebecca Eckler, because they're promoting it too. And so, I'm really in the early stage of this, but the book is on Amazon.ca and is on Amazon.com. I married a Thrill-Seker, but it's for pre-ordering, and the U.S. one is hopefully soon going to be ready for pre-ordering.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you once again, Danielle, for being our guest today. And you have shared a lot about your book. And so listeners, of course, we want you to be able to go out and be able to search this book out so you can learn a little bit more about the author and as well as the publisher as well. So thank you once again. Don't forget, audience, that we have at the 11 o'clock hour, we have our presentation that's coming up in regards to the breast cancer Awareness Month, and we have about 6 on our panel. So follow us on over to that video presentation. Everyone have a wonderful day, and Danielle, thank you again for being our guest.
And what a treat it was to talk with you. I so appreciate. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely.